What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, folks. I know you always come back here to the podcast to listen to the good stuff. Well, I've got some good stuff. I've got Peter Meyerhoff here today as my guest. And I want to give a shout out to Seth Ferrante that got us connected here. Seth's a great guy. If anybody's looking for a great documentary that is out there, he's in the St. Louis Film Festival right now. It's called Nightlife. It's unbelievable. Just saw it last Sunday. So tell you a little bit about my guest, Peter Meyerhoff. You could say that this guy, Peter, had the world at the palm of his hand. As a kid, he in athletics, modeling. He even starred in a movie as a kid. But once he hit high school, everything changed. He got involved in drugs, started out with weed, led to hard drugs. His life spiraled downhill extremely fast, being arrested several times for stealing cars, robbing houses. He was sent to prison for 12 years at the age of 18. Peter ended up getting swallowed up in the prison politics, ended up being a shot caller on the prison yard. When Peter got out at the age of 30, he hit the ground running. He had success in business. He started a popular podcast everybody needs to check out. It's called Roll Call with Chappy. And its intent is to motivate people. As well as he goes and shares his stories inside prisons. Peter's goals now are to motivate people when he speaks, using his mental strength that he acquired in solitary confinement, helping others get sober, and change the recidivism rate by showing people what's really possible with the right drive and no excuses. Peter Meyerhoff, wow, man. Welcome in.
That's quite the intro. That was pretty good.
It's a hell of a story, man.
Talking about?
I'm curious because, you know, I've kind of been inside the Peter Meyerhoff head here the last 48 hours before we were getting on this show. You know, with what was going on when you were a kid, I mean, it sounds like you had a good child life, upbringing. Things were going great.
The greatest. Like, lived in the coolest cul-de-sac. I mean, there was 10 or 12 houses there, and every single one of them was kids our same age. I never touched a video game my entire life as a kid. Like, I was in the streets playing sports every single day. I was the top athlete at multiple sports. I got into modeling. I had a modeling agent when I was like 11 or 13 or something. And I even got a part in a movie. And then,
what was that like? Peter, what was that like? I mean, at that age, you know, getting into modeling and being in a movie. I mean, how do you go back to the neighborhood?
Yeah, it felt like I could do anything. You know, life was easy. You know, like, yeah, and life was good. You know, it was awesome. It was cool being a kid. You know, and it's great. It was a baseball movie, and you remember Hideo Nomo, the pitcher?
Yeah.
It was off him. The movie was about him coming to America. So I'm 13 years old, and I actually got to hit batting practice off Hideo Nomo.
Wow.
Yeah, and
wow.
But it's so crazy how quick, you know, life can switch. You know, my life switched upside down overnight, you know, like when I was 15.
Well, tell me how did that happen for you? Because, you know, there's a lot of things that happen when you're a kid, and, you know, one thing can lead to another. But it sounds like at one point you're like, all's great. You know, it's the Norman Rockwell painting. You enter high school and you get into what? Wrong crowd? What happens?
So it's technically the wrong crowd, but I was in with the crowd, you know. So I went to high school, and as a freshman, I was instantly in with the seniors and juniors. Okay. You know, my mom was a flight attendant, so she was out of town 4 or 5 nights a week. So, I mean, I use that. I'm just a people person. I'm good at networking, like, and clearly it's what I do now, but even as a kid.
You are now, right.
Yeah, it all makes sense now. You know, I was doing that in high school, and I it was I'll tell you the story that what ruined my whole life is, I was 15 years old, the most popular kid in school. Me and my other friend, we're the two most popular kids in our school. And my mom was out of town. So that's what we do. We party, drink, do whatever. But this weekend, he wanted to hook up with another chick. So and I'm not even joking. I've known this chick since we were in kindergarten. I took him for the team for him. And I legit lost my virginity that weekend. And he asked me if they could have him over to use my house. So me and my best friend have two other girls over to hook up. We weren't even driving it. So you had to sneak out like your kids. So the other chick, Lindsay's older brother, picked them up when they snuck out of the bedroom window. He supplied us with a whole bottle of Jack Daniels. We drank that for 2 days in a row. But we do this Friday night. So he hooks up with her, loses his virginity. I hook up with her, lose my virginity. The next night, we do the exact same thing, Saturday night. And Sunday, I go to call her and she's says I had sex while she was sleeping. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And yeah, that's how it, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And to this day, the only thing, it's not even reasonable. The only somewhat reasonable explanation that I can think of is she came home hammered, probably got caught sneaking in. And the first thing she could think of to get the attention off her is, I just had sex, whatever happened. That's the only somewhat reasonable explanation.
Sure. Yeah.
Because she took charges and she wouldn't take a lie detector test. Mm-hmm. But overnight, I go from being the dude to everybody. And what's crazy is my best friend won't stick up for me. He's
wow.
like,
hands off.
And I'm like, so I go to school the next day and it's I'm not even safe here. And I had a dude tell me in school, yo, I would leave. They're going to do something to you. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I was walking the halls and I went from being the most popular kid in high school to just everybody staring at me, but no one would talk to me and put their heads down when I try and talk to them.
All in one day.
In one day. And then so literally I don't remember if they locked the school down or something, or they just came and got me out of class. But they literally took me into the police officer's room with the principal and stuff, and had to give me a police escort off campus.
Wow.
I don't remember if they suggested or whatever, but I was like, I'm all right. I'm done with school here. I literally couldn't go back to school there.
Man, that's a lot for a kid to take on at that age of 15. Wow.
So like I said, I went from that to now I'm 15 years old. I'm I don't even have to go to school anymore. And I can't talk to any of my old friends. Who do you think I turn to?
The bad stuff.
Dudes that do drugs and don't go to school either.
Right.
So I'm and even then, I think I had smoked weed, but I wasn't even I was a jock, I was an athlete.
Yeah, you're playing athletics. I mean, you don't really even have time for that when you're doing that. I did the same thing. I mean, you don't have time to do it.
Not at all. When I smoked weed, my buddy made me do it because I was always a class clown too. And he was literally you're smoking this. He's you're gonna be hilarious when you're smoking. And I did it. And I didn't even care for it. I was whatever. I'm not with that stuff. I like to do stuff and play sports all day. And so yeah, I start getting into drugs and just spiral downhill so fast. And
okay, so let me ask you this though, Peter. When you say you start getting into drugs, did you do it because you felt that it was kind of your escape from the really bad stuff that had happened? You went from the popular kid to the outcast kid, and this was a way for you to
it worked. It was
self-medicate?
But I didn't even honestly give it that much thought. I went and hung out with these kids. And I remember the first weekend I hung out with them was a Thursday or Friday or something. And they're literally doing meth and smoking crack and stuff. And I'm
wow.
I didn't do it to numb the pain. I just did it because that's what they were doing. And then
everybody was doing it.
I kept doing it to numb the, you know what I'm saying? And then there's just I didn't, from that first time I did, it's crazy. He told me meth was he's just trust me, you'll love it. It's a party drug. He's it's Coke times 10. That's how meth got explained to me.
Mm-hmm.
I did meth that first night and I did not do it up again until I went into rehab, and I was in rehab at 15 years old. Yeah, I knew
the meth story is so. I had a guy on Cal Key Lossing who was the number 4 golfer in the world as a teenager, and his whole life changed overnight because he took a hit off the pipe of meth, and that was it.
Yep. Oh, that drug makes you, it turns into a different human being. Yeah, so I went into rehab, and then they start, stealing cars, and I stole a Mercedes-Benz from the Mercedes-Benz dealership, brand new, back when Gone in 60 Seconds came out, because they were saying those cars were unstealable. And then spring break,
adrenaline rush, is that what that was?
I mean, no, we were doing it for money, drug money, you know what I mean?
You were actually doing it for money.
Yeah, yeah. And spring break, my senior, what should have been my senior year of high school, excuse me, my brother, we're at my mom's house again, just doing, literally just smoking meth in my bedroom. And my brother and his friends come over, and one of his friends,
how many siblings do you have, Peter? What was it, your brother, and is that what do you have as a family?
Yeah, one brother, and we're 2 years apart. He's 2 years younger than me. So
Okay.
of course, all of his friends always want to hang out with me and be cool with me. So
Sure.
they come over to my mom's house now, and one of his friends tells me that the Nelsons are out of town, and the Nelsons was the dude that was my best friend, and we haven't spoke since this whole thing happened. And they're the richest kids in all of Ahwatukee, spoiled rotten, like brand new Escalades. I mean, to this day, the dude doesn't have a job. Like my old best friend who's 37, like he still just uses his dad's credit card. So just like spoiled rotten kids, you know. And they tell me that they're out of town, and they had just went there and burglarized the house. And I'm like, shut up. I'm like, where are they? They're like, they're in Hawaii. And I'm like, for how long? I forgot that was every spring break they would go to Hawaii, and they're so rich, like the friends could take a friend every time. You know what I mean? Stay at the Princess, like, you know, it had to be a $50,000 Hawaii trip.
Sure.
And so keep in mind, this house was already burglarized by 5 kids. Me and my friends go back to the house. I don't make it out of the garage. Like, no joke. My mindset is like, it's a 12 or 15,000 square foot house. Like, they have a full indoor basketball court with their last name across half court. It's like, you know, like, I don't know about your house in Nantucket, but it's like stuff you see in the movies, you know? And so my plan was take a bunch of stuff, and they won't even notice it's gone. You know what I mean? So I take a drill, a snowboard, a bunch of, and right outside the gym, they have like, it's like a locker room thing with just like basketball jerseys and basketball shorts and Jordans and Jordan sandals and stuff. So I just go right down. I take a bunch of Jordan sandals and Jordan basketball shorts, and like literally the stuff that, like, the only way they would have noticed it is if, like, when Brandon went to go snowboarding, like, yo, where the hell's my stuff?
Where's my stuff?
Would have called the police. And while I'm in the garage, 2 of my friends come running in there, like, we got all the jewelry. Let's go. They had, of course, I didn't even see them. Like I said, I didn't make it out of the garage, and they, of course, went straight upstairs and hit the jewelry in the master bedroom. And of course, there was a lot of money there, and turned out to be $330,000 worth of jewelry they had just sitting in their house at home.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah!
Wow.
I mean, one of the pair of earrings was in the magazine Rob Report. It was like a pair of $64,000, you know, and that's not even what they were wearing, bro. Like, and you could look up Todd Nelson. I mean, he was the second highest paid person in all of Arizona annually. Like, he made like $59 million his last year here.
We're talking really rich.
That's what I'm saying. Really, really rich. Like 10 million a month rich almost. You know what I mean? Didn't even. And I go to prison for 12 years for that. 10 of the kids.
So I want to walk us through that, because you had been in trouble before.
Yep.
But did this feel different? This one, when you went into the courtroom?
Here's the deal. I had been in trouble before, and I kind of knew it, because like I'd been in jail so many times at 18 years old, and like you kind of just figured out. I'm like, all right, whatever. I get this. Once I got probation for stealing the Mercedes-Benz, now I'm on probation. You kind of know if you violate probation with big felonies, you're going to go to prison probably, you know what I mean? And it's like, when I'll tell you, like, when the cops arrested me on that, or they didn't even arrest me on that because they couldn't prove anything to it. So they had just first questioned me and arrested me on a probation violation. And then I'm sitting in jail, and the next day I get woken up in jail to the lieutenant saying that the news channels are here to speak to me. Like, I'm 18 years old still, you know? I'm like, what is it? What does that mean? Right. And he's like, news channels want to interview you. And I was like, for what? He's like, TV. I was like, why do I have to do this? I'm like, what do you mean? I don't want to be interviewed on TV about this stuff. And he's like, no, but you have to sign a refusal saying that I do not wish to speak to the media and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, yeah, because I definitely don't want to speak to the media on this. Like, is this normal? Well, if there's bigger cases, the media.
At least you were smart enough for that.
Yeah. And I never forget, I get on the phone with my dad that day, and he's like, saw you on TV today, Pete. I'm like, no way, really? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, Dad, I don't know. I'm fucking sorry. You know what I mean? It is what it is, you know? And I knew I was going to go to prison probably, you know what I'm saying? I knew, like, at that time, I knew I was like,
Peter, let me ask you though, like, when you had that conversation with your dad, like that time period when you were getting in trouble and things were in, because you had gone from a kid that was the most popular kid. Your parents haven't changed. They're the same parents. How are your parents reacting to all this?
Horrible. I had no relationship with my dad. I lived with mom and just took advantage of her every single day of my life. I was like the worst. I'm like, that's why I'm like so good. You know, like I hang out with her every day now, you know, like I'm a straight mama's boy. And like, I'm like, I'm still paying her back for what I did to her, you know?
I love that. I love that.
God, I got sidetracked even thinking about that. But yeah, it was, it's, and so like I said, I knew by then I knew I was going to prison, but I'm telling you, I was done with my life. Like I didn't like life on the streets. I didn't like what I was doing. And I figured maybe it is what it is with prison. Maybe I needed it. Like that was literally my mindset, you know, but I thought I was going to go away. I thought I was going to go away for a couple of years or 2-3 years, maybe, you know? And then they throw a 12-year sentence on me, like the flip of a switch. You know, I was going to get sentenced for 4 to 6 years. And I remember telling my lawyer verbatim, I'm like, dude, I cannot do freaking 6 years. Like, just promise me I'm not getting 6 years. That's all I care about. And I remember the judge's words where he says, I think this calls for an aggravated sentence of 12 years. And I remember thinking like, motherfucker, you think?
He thinks.
But it came out in the end that this judge had a thing for kids, man. And he didn't think that the kids' brains were matured until they were in their 30s. So that's what he did. 18 plus 12 years is 30 years old. He locked me up till I was 30. And then since then, the judge got banned out here in Arizona because he was too harsh on his sentences. But they didn't fucking resentence me. I'll tell you, fast forward real quick. Clemency it's unheard of to get clemency out here in Arizona. I don't know if it is where your state is, but like nobody gets clemency, right? Like when I got applied for clemency, like 7 years into my sentence, they had 3 straight days of hearings. Not one person made it to the second phase except me. And I'm not joking. I had all 5 people vote me to the next phase. The second phase, we go through and like I fly through with flying colors again. And everyone's like, their words to me where they're like, Mr. Meyerhoff, to say that your sentence is excessive is an understatement. They're like, I don't even know how you're in prison doing a 12-year prison sentence for a burglary charge. But the fact that you can't stay out of trouble in prison and the fact that you're involved in prison politics and, you know, like I was a shot call. I left the 4-yard that I was running to go do this, you know, clemency interview, you know? And they're like, the fact that you can't stay out of trouble in prison is that there's no chance that we can put, like, because it's on them, they said. They're like, there's no way we're going to put it on us and let you out of there. And so I sat in there for the next 5 years, you know, but I made it through with flying colors and every single person said I should have been out, but they're like, my prison record was so bad. They're like, there's no way we're letting this dude out early.
Let's talk about that, Peter, because I had my first bunkie was a shot caller from Beaumont, and he had worked his points down to the camp level.
Yeah.
And I mean he was a savior for me, because when I came in, he said, you don't look like you've been here before, Cassidy, so we're gonna get you going. And he more or less spoke for me, and his name's Romo. He's a great guy, but walk me in, Peter, to your world going from 18-year-old kid going into the prison. You're 18, walking in. What's your life? What's your world? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So like, I remember my first bus ride, like it was yesterday, right? So you go in this, it's my first time seeing a prison complex. I had never even driven by one or seen anything. So all I'm going off is what it's like in the movies, right? And we pull into this, and so I went to Tucson complex first, which is like, it's one of the bigger ones out here in Arizona. I think there's 7 yards in this one complex, right? So there's a huge perimeter gate around it, and then in there is each different yard. Each yard has its own gates around it and stuff. And I remember pulling in and I see dudes playing softball and basketball, and I'm like a breath of fresh air. I was like, all right, whatever. Maybe I can figure out how to fucking play softball and basketball for 12 years. All right. Like literally, that's all I was looking at. I'm like, whatever, at least they're outside and they're playing sports, you know?
Yeah.
And we dropped a bunch of people off there, and then we go to another yard, we drop a bunch of people off, and I'm, of course, the last yard. By the time we get to my yard, there ain't a dude walking the yard, and I'm like, a fucking course, this is where I'm going, you know? But in my head, the whole thing, I'm like, I have no clue what's going to happen to me, because even then, like, you meet a bunch of dudes in the county jail, you know, and they all going to prison, so you think you're going to know all these dudes, you know? But I was like,
exactly.
Security, you know, dudes in minimum security don't go away for over a decade, you know what I mean? So like,
right.
I bought all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I went from like thinking that to like, I'm not going to see any of you fools unless you guys get in trouble and go to a high yard, you know what I mean? Because
exactly.
I'm going to a lockdown yard probably, you know, with all that time. So like, I bypassed all that shit. And I remember thinking like, fucking here we go, you know? And I remember walking that first night at Chow, and I'm an alpha male, like a networker, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was in the county jail, bro, running pods and stuff the whole time, even as an 18, 19-year-old kid, you know? And I always say the same thing, like, you could throw me in the freaking mountains in Afghanistan, and before you know it, I'm gonna be running shit in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? It's just who I am, you know? And that's what I talk about. You know, everybody's got to hone in on what they're good at. That's what I'm good at. You know what I'm saying? I'm not good with other stuff, but that I got friends that are good with that stuff.
Yeah. Well, networking is a big deal in the world.
Yeah, especially nowadays. You know, you can do anything on social media. Yeah. So I remember walking that back from Chow, and this is the first time I'm like, dude, I am like a nobody. Like, nobody even notices me here. No one gives a shit if I was here. Like, I could not come out to Chow tomorrow and no one even notice, you know? I have no family. I'm in another city, like halfway across the state. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, literally, I remember thinking, like, how the fuck am I going to do 12 years like this? And I'm good at reading situations and stuff. You know, that's another one of my things that I feel like I'm really good at. I could just tell that I didn't know what it was back in the pod that I lived in, but I could tell that no one respected me or like really gave a fuck about me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was probably thinking I had long blonde hair. I was a little pretty boy. I was 6 foot, 144 pounds. And I got locked up. So I did not look like this, you know?
No, you look a lot different now, Peter.
Yeah. I got out of but so I end up, and I remember hearing like about people like starting fights in the county jail, just like get some respect or something like that. And my neighbor did not like me at all. And I didn't like him, you know, and he was who I was at the end of my sentence. He had been down forever. You know, he'd be up at 5:30 in the morning, working out every day. And I'm sleeping in until 10, 11 o'clock, whenever I was allowed to sleep until, you know, and he was just a bitter old man, you know, and I didn't blame him at the end of my sentence, because that's who I was, you know. Mm-hmm. But I made it a point to pick a fight with this dude, man. And he's the first dude that told me, you know, if you think you're going to get into it with anybody, you sucker punch. You know, there's no fair fights in prison, you know. Like, all right, cool. I bet he never thought I was going to use that thing on him, you know, but I did, you know, and I said something to him, and he made some little smart ass comment to me and told me he was going to take the chew out of his mouth and like fucking teach me a lesson or something, you know. And he turns on to take the chew out of his mouth, and I'm just on top of him, you know, and just, he never even landed a punch. Like, just, I was on top of him the entire time. They ended up pulling me off him. We go to lockdown, and I think even then like he gained a little respect, because like, bro, I used to box too. So like I was 160 pounds by then, dude, but I got hands, you know what I mean? And we had on lockdown for like a half a day. And then the next day I got to Chow, and it's like, dude, everybody in the yard wants to talk to me now. Cause I'm like, I was 160 pounds. This dude was my size, you know, double my size.
Big guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And now these OGs are coming up to me like, yo, youngster, what's your name? This and that. And I'm like, all right, I can do this now, you know? And then of course the dude running the yard wants to talk to me and ask me if I want to start putting in work. And I'm like, if you explain what the fuck that means, I might be down. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he explains what it is. And I was like, yes, I'm in. You know what I'm saying? As long as you guys are going to keep liking me and I'm going to get some respect and stuff like that, I'm 1,000% in, you know? And that's what started my, you know, road on there in prison. It turned me into just an angry, bad dude. And I love the attention and respect it got from beating people up. And I was not a nice dude, man.
So did that ever change while you were in?
No.
Peter? I mean, like, did your world, was it always kind of violent and you were on top of the world? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I was at my last 10 months that I was in solitary confinement on investigation for another attempt to murder before I got out, you know, and I got out from that under that investigation. So my last 10 months in solitary confinement, I don't know if I'm going back to the county jail and never going home again, or if I'm fucking going home, you know. And it's a miracle that dude lived, you know. And that's just they try to get me for calling the shot on some dude that got his throat slit and eyes stabbed out, you know.
So what was it like for you? Because, you know, the shot caller carries a whole different feel and respect and vibe in the prison world. First of all, how long did it take for you to become that person?
I ran my first yard when I was 23, and I ran a 4-yard at 23 years old, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I was you know, it's crazy. Like, and I didn't believe in God anymore, really. And I'm like, the whole thing's God now, because like, it's so crazy to think, and people will never understand this, I don't think, but like, as shitty as my life was, and as shitty and crazy as it is to get a 12-year prison sentence for the crime I got and all that stuff, like, and I went through the worst of the worst prison sentences. Like, towards the end of my sentence, when I was a shot caller, I'm not joking. Like, my mom was on the phone with Central Office every day. Like, my last 2.5 years, I got moved 17 times. Like, literally, CDU the yard for a month, another CDU the yard for a month. Like, no joke like that. When I was in solitary confinement for the last 10 months, was the longest stretch I had stayed steady for years, you know. But as crazy as that is, like, I feel like everything else was just like, it was destiny. Like I was meant to, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but like, I legit feel like I was destined to be a prison shot caller, and everything just worked out in my favor. You know what I'm saying? Like I got bunked up with the dude that was like the triple OG, just like you did. You know, it's all like who you know in there. Like your whole prison sentence could have been a night and day contrast difference if you didn't live next. You know what I'm saying? So as much as, like I said, it was shitty, like the political aspect of it, I felt like every domino fell in the perfect sense. And like by the time I'm 23 years old, I'm running yard. I was literally, I remember thinking like, damn, of course, you think I'm not already running a fucking 4-yard, you know what I mean? And by that time I was in a full-on relationship with the property officer. I pulled the property cop right when we pull up on the yard, and like I had the shit on lock, bro. I'm a 23-year-old kid, bro.
That's really something.
Yeah. And it's so,
I mean, at 23, you had 7 more years, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm like, and I'm not joking. I'm on a 4-yard. We're drinking promethazine with syrup, like smoking blunts in my cell. Like I got my homies, literally, I'm getting his girlfriend's underwear delivered to him for his cell. So he has his girlfriend's thongs in there and shit like that. Like, I mean, I'm not even eating prison food. Like my mom would come up to visit on the weekend and drop off a whole plate to the CO. And every day she would bring in whatever the hell that my mom had made for the week. Like, I'm like, I had
You're like the modern day Red from Shawshank.
You know what's fun? How I got on? I think that's how I got on Vice TV, because I got interviewed on the Fresh Out series about that story, and it had like almost 1 million views or something. And then after that, a producer reached out to me and did that TV show about me.
So, Peter, did you have like a prison job or anything? Like, what was your day like in there with being the guy at the top of the chain?
For the most part, it's when you're on a 4-yard, you pretty much go there and tell them like, this is the job I want. I need to be out of my cell, or you know what I'm saying. And like 4-yards are a lot more cool than like I never would spend time on a minimum security yard.
Explain the 4-yard, because people listening here, they don't even know.
Maximum security, like they call it closed custody. It's you still only get 3 days of rec period a week, 3 showers a week, either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And the other days, like you don't leave your cell except to walk to chow in an escorted single file line with gun towers and everything.
It's lockdown. Yeah,
it's below maximum security, and maximum security, single cell, 5x7, 24-hour day lockdown.
5x7.
Yeah, like you could.
That's like the size of a closet.
Couldn't even do a push-up next to your bed.
Yeah, that's when I worked myself into the suburbs, I was in an 8x10 cell, and I felt like I had worked my way into paradise. 5x7, good Lord.
You bird bath and you're half your bed soaking wet. Like that's how small it is. Man. And I'm claustrophobic,
And claustrophobic. No shit.
Oh, full blown claustrophobic, dude. Full blown. Like I get anxiety even thinking about like small spaces and stuff. Like no joke. But that's what I talk about. Like you don't like, and that's what people are so like weak about out here in the world is like we all think we can't accomplish shit, but like we don't know that we fucking try. You know what I mean? Like I would have told myself there's no way I could sit in that time in a cell or whatever. Like you know what I mean? But like until I'm thrown in, then you have to get through it, and then you realize, holy shit, my mind can do some things for me that I didn't think it could do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is all mindset. One of my favorite quotes is the old Henry Ford quote that says, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Yep. Because, everybody, and you start seeing this stuff, you see it in prison, but you see it when you get out, is that people really do build up prisons in their own mind, and they get into these really nasty situations, bad marriage, bad job, bad health crisis, whatever that is. And that routine becomes a thing that they get locked into that they can't step out of, and they don't think they can. Yeah, and, for sure. The whole thing that you're talking about, Peter, is just stepping out of it. And even if it scares the shit out of you, go ahead and do it, because your mind has so many things that it can do. I always tell people nothing is as bad as your mind makes it out to be, not even prison.
Seriously. What's the worst that can happen? It's if you don't do it, to no. You know what I'm saying? That's that's the biggest motto in life out here. Like, I'll ask anybody for like not for anything, but like if I need to like try and make a business connection or whatever, like I'm not scared to ask the like if I run into Donald Trump, I'm approaching him and ask him. You know what I mean? Like if you don't ask him, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, why not?
What's the worst thing that could happen?
What is the worst thing that happen is the worst thing that can happen is you don't ask.
Right. And sometimes when they say that, sometimes when they say no, they just might not have enough information yet.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. But you know what I've noticed more than anything is like there's a really good chance probably Donald Trump's got a nephew or a sibling or something like that has a drug addiction problem too, and there's a
Oh
chance that I
yeah.
can fire him and then I have an actual connection to Donald Trump forever.
Well, and I mean, if you're talking about Donald Trump, I mean, he's only one step removed from his daughter, who's Jared Kushner's, whose dad went to prison for 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
that's pretty close in the family
I mean,
of understanding the prison world.
a couple of the biggest law firms out here in Arizona right now. I'm literally helping both their sons get sober. Like literally one of them, I got them off the streets and into treatment. And like, these are big time lawyers out here. Like it affects everybody. You know what I mean? And you never know until you're outspoken about it. And that's why like I was so scared to talk about my past and so embarrassed about how shitty I was as a human and like so embarrassed that like my life was nothing and I didn't have anything and like I just hid my past for everybody. And then I realized like fucking helps people. You know what I'm saying? Because there's people that go through little bad things out here and they think that they can't accomplish them. And then once I can tell them just a portion of my story, they're like, holy fuck, you know what I mean?
Maybe
I'm like,
I could do a little bit of something, right?
yeah, right. So do you think maybe just tomorrow you can try and make a change? You know what I mean?
So Peter, at what point did you make, because it sounds like when you were in. I mean, really in. When did the mind change? Because when you got out, you were a force for good. So what happened?
I'll tell you. So this is another God thing. Like my prison sentence was just perfect because I did nothing but politic and like literally just like did bad things to bad people. Though. You know what I'm saying? Like when that dude got his throat slit, he was a shitty human being. Like he was literally a rapist. You know what I'm saying? So those like, and I'll firm to the day I die, those dudes do not deserve to be around. You know, like, but I went to the hole for that last 10 months. Not only that, like I was such a psychopath. Just to show you how screwed up my mind was.
Let's talk about that though too, because I mean, when you say you went to the hole for 10 months, I saw people that went to the hole for 2 months and came out looking different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how did you? I mean, I think this is something that's got to be interesting to people who are listening to this. Your world in that hole. Can you walk us into that hole, the shoe?
Yeah, it's I mean, just like I said, you deal with yourself, and by that time, I had learned how to, no joke, talk myself through situations. When I would get like a lot of times when I'd get thrown in another cell, like the second that door would close, I would have like anxiety attacks, panic attacks, you know. But by this time, I had learned that they're gonna go away, you know, and you can talk yourself off a ledge really quick. And I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if it sounds crazy or cliche, but like I literally just got like really good at talking to myself through these situations, you know. And then I realized that like I could talk myself into believing shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like I went to the hole that time. I walk you through the entire situation, how it goes, how I know how this shit goes, right? So this fool supposedly gets murdered, right? Like they slit his throat, stabbed his eyes out, like bad, right? And the next day, I'm like, when this happens and I'm on a yard at this time, and I'm like, I already have my whole shit packed up. I know I'm probably going to the hole for calling a shot on somebody or whatever it is, you know, or even if it wasn't for that, they would say like this, well, you had the power to stop it and you didn't stop it, you know, which is what they used on me there. So and then like, it was so weird because nothing happened. Then like breakfast, we know we're locked down. They come bring breakfast by. And then they say, stand by for chow for lunch in the afternoon. I was like, there's no way we're just going to lunch in the afternoon right now. You know, like there was just cop cars on the yard, you know? And I was like, I guarantee you SSU's just waiting for me by the chow hall. Because when you go to the chow hall in this yard, it's like all the way at the chow hall. It's like right here. There's a gun towers right here. And then SSU's office is right there. And I call it, like by the time we get almost directly to the chow hall, they come popping out of their door. And they don't even call me by Meyerhoff. They're like, Chappy, come here. And I was like, I told you guys. And I'm not joking, bro. I went in there and probably the most scared I've ever been in my life, because I feel like everything just like it just clicked. I was like, holy fuck, I fucked up this time, you know, like we were talking about before, like This was the one time I was like, holy shit, you know. But I'm so on drugs and like so like I didn't even think about it. Like I was strung out, you know. I was weighing 175 pounds, you know, like shooting dope every day, running a prison yard, you know, just like the prototypical stereotype fucking loser prison dude, you know. And so I walk in there and I'm not joking, there's 17 dudes in this place, and there's only a couple people wearing CO outfits, and everybody else wearing suits and ties and shit. And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And they put me on this little stump in the middle of this room in front of everybody, bro. Like, it's like a little stool that they put their feet on, and they're like, have a seat. And they're like, you want to tell us what happened in Building 1 last night? And I'm like, I'm sure you guys know, don't you? And they're like, yeah, so you want to tell us what your involvement was with it? And I'm like, No comment. I'm going home in a year. That's what I told them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, that's weird. Are you trying to tell us that something like that would just happen on your yard and you just know nothing about it? And I'm like, all I'm saying is I'm going home in a year and I'm trying to get out of the prison politics. So 1000%, I'm not trying to be involved with anything that's going on anymore. And they literally just pretty much tell me like, congratulations, you fucking screwed up your release date. Like, you don't have to worry about going home anymore, Mr. Meyerhoff. Don't worry, you just blew that. And they throw me in solitary, like from that meeting to solitary confinement.
Straight to solitary.
Yeah, they shackle me up right there. I don't even go back to my cell. They literally put me in a cage right there and then shackle me up and put me right in CDU. So I go from them threatening me, telling me I'm done. And I don't even know. They say the guy lived, and it's I got goosebumps right now. Thank God this dude lived, man. Because if he doesn't live, I'm like,
no, you're still in.
And here's the deal: I couldn't even talk about it because there's no statute of limitations now on stuff that's not murders or rapes and stuff like that. Like this fool, like, anyways, he magically lived because he was supposed to live because I was destined to do all this shit. And the reason I was supposed to have such a shitty prison story is because I can get through to anybody on a prison yard. You know what I'm saying? Like I can get through to the shot callers and the Aryan Brotherhood on prison yards now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
And not that I'm one with them, but I am one with them. You know what I'm
saying?
No,
you had the whole street cred or respect. Absolutely.
So shitty, but so perfect in that aspect because it's going to make such a difference in the world. And I honestly feel like that. Like, just like the Bible says, like, you're never going to be put in a situation that you can't handle. Like, I'm a fucking tough dude. You know what I'm saying? And I can handle that shit. I wasn't that tough when I went in there, but I learned, you know what I'm saying? Because I coached myself mentally. And I realized that if I couldn't get through a situation, it's because I told myself I couldn't get through a situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally it. Like, I just learned that from doing a lot of solitary confinement.
Talking to yourself. I mean, it sounds like to me that when you went into that solitary confinement, that you talked your way through it.
I went in that solitary confinement.
Self-talk.
And I was like, if I make it out of here, this is my chance at life. Like, no joke. I'm like, so when they finally, at this time, like, at first I'm like thinking, who knows what's going on? But after like a little bit of time goes, I'm like, damn, they are really going to leave me in here. You know what I mean? And then SSU comes by a few months later and I finally was, and I remember telling them, I'm like, by this time it's been a few months, you know? And I'm like, hey, like, you guys can't expect me to get out of prison after 12 years from this cell and like make it on the streets. You know what I mean? Like, literally, I'm like, oh, like man to man. Like, I'm not, this isn't like Chappy talking to some shot call. Like, I'm like, at this point, I'm like literally begging for my life. Like, I've calmed down now. You know, I put my weight on. I've been for a few months. I'm like, and they knew that. SSU knew when I was strung out, when I wasn't strung out too. You know what I mean? I'm like, look at me, I'm healthy. I'm like, please let me go out on the yard. You know what I mean? And they literally verbatim, they're like, Meyerhoff, we're done with you out here. Like, literally, we're going to let their streets have their luck with you. Like, we're done with you. Like, you're going to sit here until you go home. And it's what saved my life. You know what I mean? It literally did, because I think I would have still got right back into the prison politics, and who knows what I would have done if I would have got out. I mean, I remember thinking I'm struggling. I'm like, dude, I'm under a year to go. I'm like, when am I going to get off drugs? You know what I mean? Like, but I couldn't stop. You know, I literally couldn't stop. I almost lost my arm, but a year and a half to the gate, like literally almost lost my arm. When I got back to medical, the doctor told me, he goes, oh my God. He goes, I am shocked your arm's still here. He goes, I thought for sure you're going to have one arm when I saw you next time.
Through an infection?
Yeah, from shooting dope.
Yeah.
This I was in the hospital for 8
I saw that. You know, we had staff.
Yeah.
It's ugly when all that shit happens.
You want to know how long?
Some guys got staff for getting tattoos.
Yeah. And then I get back from medical right there, and I swear I'm done. I'm done with drugs. I'm done with all this. I almost lost my arm. You know what I mean? And I'm not on the yard an hour, and I'm already getting high again. You know, and I remember that night vividly like it was yesterday. I remember getting high, and at first I'm like, oh, all right, there we go. Thank God. Because I was still dope sick from being in the hospital, you know? And I'm finally better, and then I go lay in my little bunk, and I'm like, I'm never going to fucking be able to quit using drugs. You know what I mean? I was literally thinking, I was like, I'm never going to be able to get off this shit, you know? And so, like I said, all that happened. It was shitty as it was, like, it saved my life, you know? So I got in there, and the whole time I'm thinking, because I've been in there 12 years now, and I haven't even made somewhat of a game plan on what the fuck I'm going to do when I get out. You know what I mean?
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, you're getting close to the door. What were you thinking?
My only mindset is it's a coin toss if I ever make it out of here. You know what I'm saying? And if I make it out, I'll figure it out when I get out. That's what I'm telling myself. All I got to do is get out of prison, you know, because now I'm worrying about this case. And you know, I get out, and I thought by the time I got out, you know, like my goals, like literally my goals, this is like, I've made it. If I do this, is like somehow just get a job, like literally probably construction or something, but I just got to get a job, and I got to figure out how to stay sober and live a boring ass life, but like be okay living a boring life. And at least I'm not in prison. I was like, that's all I got to do. That's all I got to do. You know what I mean? I had no clue I could make money. I had no clue I could be sober and happy. I had no clue like the urge to drink and use drugs would ever go away. I didn't think it was possible. You know what I mean? Like, I'm such a, and I don't brag about this at all, but I do this to like tell people like that, when that people that think they got it bad, like if there's a a scale of, and I firmly believe this. My sponsor in the program would argue with me till he's blue in the face of this, but like, there's different levels of degrees of addicts. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Sure.
if it's a 1 to 10 scale, I'm 100. Like, no joke. Like, I am as bad as it gets. And the fact that I can like have 6.5 years sober now and haven't even contemplated drinking or using, like, that's
incredible willpower and mind power. I mean, that's, to me, that's incredible. Well, when you finally got out of there, I mean, are you telling me that you did 10 months in the hole and they released you to be free?
It was so bad. I just shared the story on a podcast the other day. This is how different my mindset was. I get out from there. Yes. Straight directly. I go from, they don't even let me walk to the release things. I'm walking shackled up. Everybody else gets to like walk right there. I have an escort with 3 COs and shackled to my release cage.
God, that's unbelievable, Peter.
Literally. And then
I've never even heard of that they release somebody that way.
Oh yeah, 1000%. Like, and I'm like, and I remember telling them that when they came to get me for my cell, and I'm like, you guys are going to shackle me up right now. And they're like, we don't care that you're going home. Like, you have to be in shackles as long as you're on this property. So like, that's what they did. And listen to this. This is how screwed up my mind was. I'm getting out with, so I just greeted my mom, my dad, my brother, and all of them for the first time ever. You know, I'm in the car.
Yeah, I think I saw that video. I think that's somewhere on camera. Yeah.
So listen,
you get out that day. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a big perimeter fence around that. This is the Buckeye complex. So then we go to drive through the last one. I just get out. I'm in the front seat. My dad hands him my paper to show him who I am, my release, and all that stuff. He goes like kind of hand it back, and I'm not even joking. I like snatch it out of my dad's hand, like all like shady, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell is this, you know? And they get out of here, and there's a fucking paperclip that he left on the thing. And like, my mindset is still, I'm like, a paperclip's gold in solitary confinement. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh my God, he didn't see that. And like, my reaction is just to snatch the shit out of my dad's lap. And I'm with my family now, you know? And I remember looking at this, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I look back and I look at my mom and my brother, and like instantly it clicked. I was like, oh fuck, that looked real bad. You know what I mean? And seriously, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, you have no idea how much like gold this paperclip is. You know what I'm saying? And it was just gold for me an hour ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I always wanted to listen to Tom Petty when I got out, that Free Falling song. Like, that was my stuff. You know, if I ever heard that in prison on the radio, I would cry every time. And I bullshit you not, man. Second we get out there, we hit a gas station. I buy $32 of candy, bubble gum, and energy drinks. I never had an energy drink before. And Free Falling is the first thing that comes on right when we hit the freeway. And,
wow.
and like I said, the rest of my life was just destiny, you know? And then I had an overdose when I got out, and I died, and like, God saved my life for this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was supposed to be another fentanyl statistic when I got out.
Like, what, being that, it's very rare to get to talk to somebody who's in that long that they get out. Like, what was the biggest thing that you noticed that was different than when you went in?
Everything, man. Like, I went away with the Nokia phones with Snake on them. I get out, we got flat TVs and iPhones and stuff, you know, and I went away from living with my mom and dad to like, I'm supposed to be a 30-year-old productive member of society. You know what I'm saying? I've never even lived.
You're an adult.
Yeah. And I like, so, yeah. And then not only that, like, yeah, figure it out. You know what I mean? And I'm still pale white from being in solitary confinement. Like, I got out of prison pale white with yellow teeth.
You probably look like death being in there. You don't go outside.
I'll send you some of my pictures later, but like, I don't even post those ever, because like the pictures of my release, like my teeth were yellow. I looked horrible.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, so Peter, you hit what I think is so fascinating about your story is that you figured out how to make it work for you on the inside there, and really come to the top of the heap. But then getting back out into society is not easy. It's not something that I think the only people that can understand that are the people who've been in prison, because I think a strange thing happens is that people look at you when you get out of prison and they think, oh my God, he should be so excited. And you are. You couldn't be any more excited. But all these other things go on in your mind, like, oh, I'm an ex-convict. Does everybody look at me as an ex-convict? Now, what am I going to do? Am I going to get a job? Is anybody going to give me a job? All these things start spinning. How do I fit back into society? Are people looking at me weird? All those things are spinning. And I think it takes you a little bit of time just to try and get your feet under you. Like, okay, I feel okay. It's me. How did that work for you?
That's exactly what it is. You know, that's all I say. Like, and that's ultimately why I walked away from all the money I was making in my career. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about just getting some confidence and knowing that it's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, and for me, it was just like, it was seeing other people do it. You know what I mean? Like, seeing like, and maybe it's just how I think, but like, here's the deal. Like, I'll go out to Paradise Valley here in Arizona, which is like by far the most expensive zip code, like hands down, you know what I mean? And there's like 5, 10, $20 million cribs everywhere. And I look at all those houses, and just the other day I was doing it because like I do that and like I visualize stuff. And I'm like, maybe this is one of my gifts, but I look at those houses and I'm like, there's fucking no chance in the world that there can be that many of those big ass houses and I'm not going to find a way to get one myself.
I love it.
And that's how I think of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I love it though. That's a great mindset.
And there's no way that dork's going to out hustle me now. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Me, but that's all you're going to outdo me in. You know what I'm saying?
He puts his pants on the same way.
100%. So like,
yeah.
But you just have to see it. And then so like what it is, I just saw a bunch of dudes that I knew weren't hustlers out here making money. And I'm like, there's no way. So let me tell you real quick, when I got out of prison, and like, this is not even the worst part about my story. I'll tell you how I, like when I died, and then that's when I started making money. Like, so I get out, I'm 30 years old, never been on a date even, never been to a bar. Of course, I know I'm a drug addict and I should be in a recovery program. But keep in mind, I'm 39 years old and I've never even been to a bar. You know,
right.
I'm of course entitled to do that. And not only that,
things that you want to do. Exactly. It's a checklist.
You know what I mean? Like literally, I went on my college days and all that stuff. You know, like I should have been a top college athlete.
You missed it all. Right.
Partying who I wanted to, you know? And instead I got to watch my, old teammates on TV that weren't even as good as me playing. You know what I mean? And that's just the beginning. I remember watching that in my first year and I was like, oh my God, I still have 10 more years to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this another thing that I struggled with in recovery, and it didn't work until I just finally like threw the towel in on it. But like, I never thought I was like an alcoholic drinker, if that makes sense. Like I'm a full drug addict, but like, I don't drink like an alcoholic. Like I've never drank by myself. I didn't have alcohol in my house. Like I just love to party. And when I partied, I can't say no. And if I'm blacked out, I'm going to say yes to drugs if drugs are in front of me. So so this is what I'm doing now. I'm 5 or 6 days a week. I'm literally at the bar, just drinking, running through women. Just, that's all I'm doing. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I can do this. Right. And then of course, lo and behold, I get a dude that weighs 130 pounds and wants to start running his mouth to me at a bar, and I'm drunk and I throw a beer in his face and that's my mindset. Like the change me is like, I just threw a beer in his face instead of punching him in the face. You know what I mean? And like, out here in the streets, that's still assault. You know what I mean? If you throw a piece of paper at someone and they don't want to throw it at them, that's assault. So exactly. I learned that. So then they put me on maximum security parole, and I'm like, oh my God, all right. What am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, this is it. I got to figure it out. Right. But I don't want to stop drinking. Like, I'm having so much fun with this, and I'm just going to watch now, you know what I mean? And like, okay, I get it. Now I can't throw. Now I'm like, all right, I know I can't throw beer at anybody or anything like this, whatever.
I'm not going to do that.
I'll figure it out. But the last thing I'm going to do is stop drinking right now, And
right.
I remember it was a buddy's birthday party. It was like a Friday afternoon, man. And literally in the afternoon. And the last thing I remember doing was a shot of Rumplemints. And I got in touch. I don't even know how I got in touch with him, but one of my old prison dudes, man. And somehow I end up leaving this bar. I don't even remember leaving the bar. Next thing I remember is I wake up in an ambulance. And I'm like, I come to him, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like strapped in this ambulance with
you don't even know what happened? You're just
zero clue. The last thing I can remember is being at the bar. And I'm like, first thing is I got in a bar fight. But I'm like, if I got in a fight, why the fuck am I in an ambulance? You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking like, fuck, I must have got jumped or something, because there's no chance.
Big sucker punch.
There's no way I'm gonna get beat up out here on the streets and I'm just whooping dudes in prison, And, I go to the dude and I was like, what the fuck am I doing in here? And he's like, you overdosed. And I remember, like, this was yesterday, I told him, I don't even use drugs anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, I did today. And I remember, like, and then I literally remember, I just like put my head back and I'm like, what a fucking loser I am. Like, literally, like, the biggest, and I'm no joke at this time, like, now I talk to myself and I'm like,
yeah,
you fucking biggest loser on the fucking face of the earth. Like, you literally deserve to die. Like, no joke. And I'm like, telling myself, like, why the and at this point,
is this your rock bottom? Is this it?
At this point, like, it's so rock bottom, I don't even want to try to get out of rock bottom. I'm like, you're a fucking loser. And like, literally, I'm like, why didn't I just die? Like, literally, like, why the fuck couldn't I just die? And like,
yeah,
at least when I committed suicide, because I feel like it was always just a pussy ass cop out way, but I always wanted to kill myself.
Right.
And then out of myself, they're like, why the fuck did I survive? And I overdosed and relapsed again. And I'm like, how am I going to tell people that I just, you know what I mean? Like, started using drugs.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And I get to the hospital and I remember hearing but of course, me now, I'm this big prison shot caller too, of course. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody in my family, and I'm going to get out of this hospital, hopefully, and whatever, you know, and hide it from my parole officer. And I remember hearing my little brother in the hallway on the phone with my dad. And I'm like, and I yell, Matt. And I hadn't even talked to him at this point. And I was like, fucking, what are you? And of course, why are you fucking telling dad? And he's like, you almost fucking died, Pete. Do you like know? And I was like, I don't have any idea what happened. Like, literally, no one's telling me what happened. And then the doctor comes in and he tells me, he's like, I was dead when they found me. Like, literally, no heartbeat, no nothing. And by the time they had got me to the hospital, my heart was only beating 6 beats a minute.
Wow.
The doctor said I'm the only person to ever survive in this condition that he's seen. And I remember laying back in the hospital bed, and I even have worse, more like survivor's guilt, you know, like, why the fuck did I survive this? You know, like, not only do I feel guilty for surviving, I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, at this point, I don't believe God's will. And if God's will, he clearly doesn't give a fuck about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would he all of a sudden save my life here when I was like, I was dead? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm dead from fentanyl. Like, those people don't survive from those cases. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
But God saved my life to do this mission I'm on. And like, it's so crazy. I remember like, it like literally with like my mindset, and this is why I'm such a mindset person, like within 2 seconds, my mindset switched in there. And then like, I just kept the fucking pedal on the metal, like the next day. And I still haven't let off, but like, I go from thinking, it's hard to even explain, but I go from laying in that bed thinking like, I can't even look at my brother and my mom who are like literally like sitting next to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, look at it, feel like I just want to die. And then like something comes over me and I'm like, I'm going to figure this shit out. Like literally, all right, I'm done. I'm literally going to do this. And I remember just telling myself, I'm like, all right, I'm done making excuses. Fuck the alcohol. Even if I'm like not the full blown alcoholic, whatever, it is what it is. I'm done with the alcohol. Like I haven't even had a chance at life yet. I'm 31 years old now, you know, like, so I just told myself, Len, I'm done making the excuses. I'm actually going to try and like do different. And I'm like, not just going to be a pussy and cop out with shit. Just use this prison shit as an excuse. And like, the next day I decided to, and I went to a fucking meeting, you know, and I literally went to, I think 150 meetings, like my first 90 days, you know, I had no job. I had no idea how to stay sober. I had no money and no job. And all I did was went to recovery meetings, you know, and then fucking someone gave me a job selling cars, you know, and fucking
selling cars. I bet you were good at selling cars.
I murdered shit, man. I went from never having a job my entire life to making 10 grand my second month ever working. And I'm like, I remember I get my first bonus check and it was like $3,900 or something after taxes. And I'd already got paid the week before. And here's the deal. Like I did a bunch of prison time, but I was never like no baller on the streets. Like I was a fucking thief. You know what I mean? Like that was instantly the most money I'd ever had in my life. And I'm a 31-year-old adult, you know?
Yeah.
But it set a switch off me. And I'm like, once I saw that I could make money, I knew it was over with. And I just like switched my addiction, man, from a drug and
that became your addiction. Yeah.
To money, you know what I'm saying? And then like I made, you know, 10, 15 grand a month, you know, and then I made it in finance in 13 months, bro. Like I stole a Mercedes-Benz from the Mercedes-Benz at Chandler dealership. I have every theft charge in the world you can imagine. And then within 13 months, I'm a finance manager at a huge car dealership in Scottsdale. And like, I'm one of 3 guys with the keys to the safe at this dealership. And I'm making 200 grand plus a year with a car is still on parole. My last with my parole officer, I pulled up in my brand new, I remember I financed 84,753. I financed an $85,000 truck. My payment was $1,189 a month. And I'm 2 years out of prison.
That's cool.
And the biggest thing why shit started going for me though was because I stayed sober. And I always remember this, as long as I stayed sober and kept my sobriety in check, like everything else will fall into place. You know, I'm like, I just can't give up anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like if I give up, I'm dead. You know what I mean? And like, it just finally, I had to dumb it down for myself like that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I choose to be weak and go drink again or relapse,
you could die.
I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Like God saved my life to do this mission. And it's just, well, like my last year in the car biz, like I just made 41 grand in April. And that's clearly not, I mean, like now it's not money to like where my goals are, you know what I'm saying? But like coming out of prison, like that's astronomical. You're like, yeah, like
huge.
It was making a year, you know? And
but Peter, don't you think it's kind of interesting though, how, because I had my own rock bottom moment, but you know, sometimes when you hit that rock bottom, because a lot of people don't know, like, oh my God, I hope I never hit rock bottom, which I hope most people don't. But hitting rock bottom can be a new beginning that actually makes everything clear. You got clarity. You know, you either have death or you have your future that looks a lot different.
if you watch my, look at my reel that I posted on my clip yesterday with Brody Kern that was on my show, we said the same thing. I was like, and he said it's fucking perfect, right? I don't know if you know Brody Kern, you should follow him and get him on your show too. He is badass. And he says like, he's like, the same thing in me that'll make me drink myself to death is the same fucking thing in me that I make millions with, as long as I learn how to flip that switch.
It's the same switch.
You know what I'm saying? We all got this shit in, flipping that switch and figuring it out.
So you go in and you start doing this, and then when do you decide that you want to go in and start talking to people, going back into the prisons and being in that world again?
What's crazy, and it came out to me overnight, man. Like I just had, April was my best month of my career working as a finance manager. I made 41 grand. And then I felt selfish, honestly, though, man. Like I wasn't doing anything to help people. You know, I was just stacking up money, just buying, you know, doing whatever, buying clothes, you know, and
it's still fun. Yeah.
It was fun, but yeah, I mean, I bought 12 cars when I was there. I mean, there's only so many cars you can buy, you know, I bought a couple houses. And I finally was like, damn, I need to go show these dudes that we can do this. Like, and literally I was like, fuck, now that I know this is possible, I'm like, I would have never believed this unless I saw it myself. So I'm like, I have got to like, I just saved up some money and I was going to sell my house. And I was just like, I'm going to quit my job. And just like I said, I saw enough dudes making money on Instagram and shit. And I'm like, there's no chance in hell these dudes are going to out hustle me.
That's right.
For that shit, I was just like, I'm out. I remember calling my gym into my office. He's the only guy that ever let me work for him. You know what I mean? And I call him in there and he's like, what's up? And I was like, I don't know what to say other than the fact that I got to quit. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I mean, no one walks away from that job. Like at the whole dealership, everyone begs to get into finance. Like you don't walk away.
Absolutely. That's the promised land.
People raise families and live good lives being a finance major. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And this dude that just did 12 years in prison with an 8th grade education, I'm just like, I'm already on to the next thing, you know? And I just told him, I was like, I don't know what to say other than like, I just know I'm meant to do more. You know what I mean? Like I'm not meant to sit here and sell warranties like I'm doing. Like I want to help people. And I just, by this time, like I got filmed at that Vice TV show and I had realized that like my story is kind of impactful, you know? And I'm like,
yep.
And to be honest, Josh, there's a good chance I could fall on my face and come ask you for this job back. But like, I got to go try and do something on my own. I'm just going to try and get my story out there and help people, you know? And I'm like, to be honest, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I didn't even think I was going to do a podcast when I quit my job. I was going to open up a treatment center. That was my goal. Yeah. And he was like, we talked for an hour and a half and like both cried and he just said he loved me, man. He's like, if it doesn't work out, he's like, I would love to have you back. And he's like, I'm just a fan of yours. And like, I still hang out and golf with him. And so I quit my job. And by this time I'd known a ton of people for networking out of that office and just doing what I do, you know? And so what I did is I just built up a phone book, you know, and I started all these people that I know now. Now I'm just like setting up a gym meeting, lunch meeting, coffee, whatever. And I'm like picking everybody's brain, just figuring out with my brain what I can put where and who and two and two together here and there. And it's been a pretty cool year and a half, man.
That is so cool. Tell me a little bit about your brand, your clothing brand.
Yeah, so that's another thing. You know, I started with one of my good friends, Johnny. I'm real proud to be sober now. You know what I mean? And I realized that like my sobriety and my like recovery, because I was such a fuck up before, like helps a lot of people that are really struggle with sobriety. And I just kind of wanted to like, you know, I'm always the alpha male. And I like to like, you know, like we talk about with prison, I run shit. And I wanted people to be proud to be sober. You know, I feel like a lot of people that one thing I noticed is when people are sober, they want to say it on the down low. Like, you know, like, oh, I don't drink either. And I'm like, I'm broadcasting that shit when I get to a bar, you know what I mean? And so I wanted to create a brand that was just like look cool and people would like promote and it worked perfectly because now it's like when I wear that shit to the gym, people that are sober come pull me over and like I can talk to them. And if I wasn't wearing that, I would have never known like I was sober. You know what I mean? I
love that.
Yeah, I wanted to create a movement.
Stand out in front of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what
the other thing, I totally off subject, but Seth told me that when the COVID thing happened, that you were one of the guys that was training like the pro guys was it like in your gym or like in your garage?
Yeah.
Is that crazy? I mean, I don't think this is like a crazy story.
No, well, that's one thing. And I realized like how to get like kind of good at networking and stuff too. So I had like, I bought this house for this RV garage. So I had like it's a separate 44-foot RV garage with a built-in office and a bathroom in the back of it. It's huge.
That sounds cool. That sounds cool.
Dope. It's what literally sold the house to me. And I had eventually was like, I would want to do a gym here or something, you know? And so the gyms are closing down and I was like, shit, I'm going to build this whole gym here. You know, I don't leave the house anyways, you know? And So I had built this entire gym, like literally within overnight. Like I had found this dude that bought and sold commercial gym equipment on the side. And like, I went over there and saw his whole gym. And I was like, I went to go buy a couple pieces, and I was just like, it turned out, I was like, what if I just bought your whole gym, you know? And then I always have like youngsters that I help mentor that get sober. So then I get my little over to my house and I pay them $100 a day to set everything up. So like I went from having nothing out there to I'm working up in finance all day long, and I come home from work that night and I have an entire gym at my house. Like I'm not joking, commercial gym, like everything you can imagine, hammer strength.
I love it.
And it got so big out here in Arizona, like gyms are closed down. So I noticed a lot of big time names that I was following were posting, anybody know where any gyms are? Of course, I'm like, this is perfect.
There you are.
I had Tyron Matthew, the honey badger over here working out, Dion Buchanan, like a bunch of big time, a couple just dudes that are like as big as it gets out here. And I mean, there'd be 15 dudes here every day almost. Like sometimes they're just, and I live in a custom home community, but not like that. You know what I mean? Like there'd be Rolls Royces, McLarens all down the street and stuff. And
timing's everything, right, Pete?
It's just perfect. So I've networked with a bunch of NFL players too, and it's all from that. You know what I mean? And I just like, timing was right on my stuff. You know what I'm saying? And like,
but but what the cool thing about your story is that you've just stepped into it. You know, I mean, who does that? Who goes and buys a whole gym and during COVID, and then you're the guy that has everything, and you got the NFL guys over just using your stuff, and you make all these different connections from that.
It's crazy.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. It should be a movie. I mean, obviously, you know, it should be the Chappy. And I forgot to ask, where did Chappy come from?
I just have a chapstick addiction, bro. That's it.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, you know they give you that
crazy.
So
the old chapstick guy.
I would need that shit all day long, every day. So I always had chapstick with me. That's my name.
All right, so Pete, I got to ask you. So after everything that you've lived through, I always ask this question at the end because, you know, you've been on one hell of a journey. What do you think's your biggest takeaway from all this, to shove it out there to the listeners?
To be honest, I feel like no joke, I was made on this earth to like literally, I'm no joke, like my biggest goal in life is like, I'm going to single-handedly change the recidivism rate for the entire country. Like I want to inspire people to make them be sober quick. Because another thing I noticed too is like when I'm out like with a bunch of the big first time athletes and stuff, like all the guys that are drunk, they have heart to hearts with me now when they're drunk, and they're like, dude, I want to be sober like you. I want to do this. Like I honestly think I want to recruit people that aren't even addicts and alcoholics to being sober. Like I want to start an entire sober movement. And I like literally, as cliche as it sounds, I want to be known for changing the world. Like literally, like that's my biggest goal. And I feel like God has blessed me so much with all this because I'm like meant to change the world. And I'm not going to stop until I do it.
Man, I love it. We got to end there. That's a good way. I mean, I'll tell you, Peter, man, you are an inspiration. Your story is an inspiration. I feel lucky to be able to have you on and be able for you to share this story.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Anything else I didn't ask you? Anything else I didn't ask you? What'd you say, Pete?
Thank you. Another big shout out to Seth Francis for hooking this up, man. So thank you.
No, it was great. It was great. For anybody out there that's, you know, just kind of looking around, you want to read a book, I wrote one. It's called Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free, a memoir. Like social media, I love all that. Hey, anybody, there's a whole different weird algorithm that happens when you do a post, a review on Apple. It helps the show. Go there, do that. Follow the little bell on Spotify. Follow the show. Share the show. And I was going to tell everybody, I just got from Travis Ritchie that helped me out. Nightmare Success In and Out is now on Edovo. It's in 200 prisons. For you guys that are behind the walls, I couldn't be more happy to be with you guys. Go to the Discovery section on your tablet. Type in Nightmare Success In and Out. You'll find my episodes. Thank you, Travis Ritchie, for that hookup. As I used to say when I was typing from my core links, True Links back when I was in prison, stay strong and I'll do the same. Peter Meyerhoff, thank you, my man. You're so cool.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.